she just kind of welled up with tears and said, well, I'm probably going to cry. That's okay, too. Brenda, would you come on? She's already started leaking.
My mother's name was Rena Catherine Carter Steele, and she lived to be 95 years old. She has been dead for 10 years. I was the fourth of her 5 children. My mother only went to the 6th grade. That was all the education she had. My mother went to work in Cannon Mills when she was 14 years old, and she worked until she was 69 years old. Now, that's between 50 and 55 years because she was out soon to have her children. You know, I didn't realize until I was an adult what a sacrifice Mom made. When I was growing up, we had an old Ringer washing machine on the back porch. And every Monday and Thursday she washed. That was the only day. She had to fill up the washing machine. She had 2 big old tin tubs that she filled up for the rinse of the clothes, and then she hung them out. And then she fixed supper for her family, and then she went to work on the 2nd shift. I didn't realize how hard that was until I became an adult. My mother accepted Jesus as her Savior when she was 21 years old at a tent revival down on North Lawrence Street in Kannapolis. And my mother was a godly mother. I saw that godliness in my mother every day. My mother was sweet, she was kind, she was loving, she was caring, and she was an encourager. And one of the things that I will always remember about Mama, she always saw the good in every person. She didn't look for the bad. She always saw the good, and I can always remember that. My mother never learned to drive, but she could tell other people how to drive. Ralph tried to teach her after my daddy died, but she got so nervous she couldn't do it. My mother was a true friend and neighbor, and she faithfully showed that she cared and loved people. Many days, on Mondays especially, I would go over to her house after school, and she would always be sitting at the table, and she was addressing cards to people that were shut-ins, nursing home, hospital, or her friends that were sick. And my mother faithfully attended her church as long as she was able. And I have one little thing. I want to show you this. I'm not going to read everything. But I bought this for my mother back maybe in 2000. And my mother and I spent a year or more. And it's called Reflections from a Mother's Heart. And when I go to her house, we would sit there and ask questions in here, and I would ask her the questions, and she would tell me, and I would write it in the book. And I want you to know this is a treasure. I got one little thing in here I want to read. I don't remember it, and you'll understand when I read it. The question was, tell me about a driving trip with your family. And she said, my Aunt Ruby, when her husband died, excuse me. When Ruby's husband, Earl, died, she said, I remember we went to Tennessee. We had a tire blow out when we were not far out of Mooresville, and we stayed at this place for hours, as it seemed, getting it fixed. Brenda was a baby, so this must have been in 1942. Mary Esther and Sonny were crying and asking me if we were going to get to go. I said I didn't know, so you should pray about it. I was walking around with Brenda, and I went back to the car, and all 3 of the older children were down on their knees praying. We went on to Tennessee and made it just fine. I just want to end it with this. My mother was a prayer warrior, and some of her prayers are still being answered today because I know one of the things that she said, that she wanted all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to know the Lord as their personal Savior, to serve the Lord, and to live for Him every day. And as I said, my mother left her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren a spiritual legacy by her Christ-like example. Thank you.
I would hazard